Hey y'all, hi. There's nothing on the screen right now except for my little hands because I want to keep it a secret, the things that I'm going to show you. In this video, I am going to go through my most worn pieces of makeup this year so far. And this is not makeup that I've been testing for review, not new makeup, but pieces of makeup from my existing makeup collection. So if you watched my makeup declutter at the end of 2022, and then you watched like the finale video where I went through and showed you how my makeup collection looked going into 2023. The question there is like, well, of this edited collection, of these choice products, which are the ones that are going to really rise to the forefront immediately now that everything's like whittled down and cleaned out and I only have kept the best of the best. So I've been keeping track of what I've actually ended up using the most. It's like the best of the best of the best for me right now. I'm just going to take you on a little tour of those products in this video and talk about why I think I've been using them so much. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm so glad that you're watching this video. My name is Hannah. I love makeup, but I don't want to have a problem with overspending, and I also don't want to promote overspending, so I try to strike a balance on my channel between reviewing new things and kind of keeping my finger on the pulse of the beauty community, and also just indulging in the joyful use of the same old makeup that I already own. And if you like this, and if all of that sounds good to you, I hope you will subscribe. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. All right, starting with eyeshadow. This is by far my most worn eyeshadow in 2023 so far. It's the Chantecaille Elephant, and this surprises me for a couple of reasons. One is that it's a single, and you know, I love the 5 palettes that I kept, and I have been using them. All 5 of them have been in rotation, but I've used this more times than I've used any one of those palettes. I've used this over and over again. It's been my default. And the other thing that surprises me is that it's been this instead of the giraffe. I have 2 of these. They were both sent to me in PR for review from Chantecaille last year. And I thought I would love the giraffe more because it's like a warm brown without being too coppery. It's one of those lovely bronzes that doesn't lean orange. And I always feel like that color of eyeshadow is my absolute tippy top tier, like my favorite. And everything else, even things that are kind of similar to that, like they don't quite approach how much I love a neutral bronze. And you know, maybe there's an argument that this is actually also kind of in the bronze world. Like it's a very taupe leaning bronze or like a taupey bronze, but it has some flecks of maybe what you could call warmth in it without, again, you know, without even coming close to being copper or orange or anything like that. But it's not too cool toned. It's sort of that magical in between, that magical both. And I've ended up vastly preferring it to the Chantecaille Giraffe. I've had this on my eyes in like most of the videos that I've filmed so far in 2023, and people have been asking about it. I'm always like, it's the Chantecaille Elephant. I also love the formula. It's baked, so it has this sort of slidey quality, but without being a cream. It's really easy to blend out. It has lots of shimmer in it. It's just precious and perfect, and I can't stop using it. My other most used eyeshadow so far of 2023, kind of a surprise, absolutely an oldie but a goodie. And this is one that obviously I've had for a really long time. And I've always known that it was great, that it really suited me, but it's sort of just been lost in the mix for a couple of years. It's just been like one of the many little single eyeshadows that I have, little eyeshadows in its own package, I mean. One of the many that's kicking around. And every once in a while when I'm talking about wet look eyeshadow, I'll pull it out, I'll demonstrate it, give it as an example in a video, but it wasn't really in the heavy rotation that it deserved. And it was really whittling down that totally oversaturated part of my collection that caused it to shine, not to put too fine a point on it. So this is Urban Decay Space Cowboy. It's very famous for really, really looking wet, for having that like Vaseline shine. But to me, it's more than that because as you can see, when it's buffed out, it has sort of a ruddy undertone. It has the translucency that's required for something to really look wet, but it's not without a base shade. It has this lovely ruddy base shade that somehow doesn't go too orange on me. It keeps itself in like the kind of rosy realm with me, and it just adds like an editorial je ne sais quoi to every look. The thing that surprises me about this, the fact that it's in this video that I've been using it so frequently, is that I've also whittled down my palette collection. And in my palettes, I have some wonderful sheer wet look shadows, especially in my Pat McGrath palettes. And it's but the work of a moment to open one of those palettes and just sneak a finger into one of those to finish off an eye look. But since I've whittled down my collection and my eyeshadow drawer is just much clearer and more minimal, I've been reaching for this instead. And I think it's because it feels a little bit novel to me because it's been buried for so long and now it's no longer buried. It's like easy to grab. I always see it when I open my drawer. But I think it's also because it has these wonderful dynamic qualities. It's like adding a little bit of color as well as that super Vaseline-y wet look shine. I've just been really appreciating Space Cowboy lately more than I ever did before. A classic look for me so far this year has been laying down a bunch of the Chantecaille Elephant and then topping it with Space Cowboy. It's like iridescent, shiny, chic, but also easy. I would have never guessed at the end of 2022 that these would be my go-to eyeshadows for the first month of the year, and yet they have been. Okay, let's talk about blush. So this will come as no surprise because I've applied it in a lot of videos. I haven't just been wearing it in videos. It's like I've applied it in a lot of videos. I've used it in videos where blush wasn't like the main gig and I just needed something to complete the look. But I also used it in my video about cold girl makeup. It's been featured heavily. Like if you've been following me, you know that I've been wearing this blush a lot. It's the Chantecaille Cheek Gelée in the shade Happy. It says a gel cream formula that gives the cheeks a natural flush. And you know, that is why I've been wearing it so much. It's interesting. It's called the Cheek Gelée. It says it's a gel cream formula. I don't really think of it that way. And I think if it wasn't labeled as that, I wouldn't think of it that way. I would think of it as just like a really natural cream blush. It reminds me so much of the Glossier Cloud paints because it's a liquid, but it really becomes one with the skin, blends into the skin, looks incredibly natural, and then it dries down. It's sturdy. It really, really sticks and stays. It's so sturdy that I'm able to put it on my eyelids as the base of a look or just as the look, and it will work on my eyelids. It will last all day. And it's a rare cream or liquid blush that dries down enough or sinks into the skin enough for that. And you can see how subtle it is. In fact, under these bright lights here, it's kind of barely showing up, but hopefully you'll be able to see that. And the thing is, that's why I have been wearing it so much. That's why I've been wearing it. It's because it doesn't compete with anything else that's on my face. Even though it's in this bright color, I was initially kind of disappointed that they didn't have a more neutral color in this blush. Like all three of them are kind of strong and bright, but because the pigment is so light and the formula shears out so much, even in this bright color, it doesn't compete. It gives my cheeks a little bit of a sheen. It's just like the easiest blush in the world to wear. I'll try to make sure that I link a video or two in which I apply this to my cheeks. I think that you'll be able to see the effect of it better in that kind of footage than you can see here. Surprising myself, the other blush that I've worn the most so far this year has been this one, Pat McGrath Flirtatious, which is a blush that I bought for myself in the fall of last year. It surprises me because it's a powder blush, and I think of myself as wearing cream and liquid blushes the vast majority of the time. In fact, I only kept 2 powder blushes and 2 powder bronzers in my declutter. However, what I've realized as I've kind of kept track of how often I reach for which of my blushes, what I've realized is that I wear powder blush more often than I think, and I do it because every once in a while I get myself into a situation where the base makeup that I have on my face is either a little finicky because I've been doing a lot of spot concealing, or it's already quite powdery because I've powdered, or something about the base makeup makes me feel like cream blush is going to be a little bit harder to apply. So even though I prefer like the tactile quality of a cream blush, I prefer the application process, and I prefer in most cases the outcome of a cream blush, and that's why I tend to default to them. It's relatively frequent that it's time to put on blush and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna go with a powder today. It'll be more foolproof, it'll be quicker, easier. It's almost like it's easier to get a super sheer sweep of powder across the cheeks that's like really subtle and just kind of like doesn't disturb what's there but adds a little bit of color. It's a little harder to do that with a cream blush. This one makes it really easy, and that's why I've been using it so much, but most of my other cream blushes are just like more pigmented, more of a statement color, more of a statement product. So I think that what this tells me is that I've been into just kind of like a subtle wash of color on the cheeks lately. Like that's what I've been going for. I haven't been doing a ton of like blush forward forward makeup or like blush draping so far this year. Doesn't mean I won't get back into that space. It's like one of my favorite things to do. But so far this year, it's been subtlety, and that's why these have been my go-to blushes. Base makeup. I'm going to spend as little time as possible talking about this, the Exa Green Color Corrector, because I talk about it all the time. I demonstrate it all the time. I wear green color corrector every day, every time I do my makeup, and this is my green color corrector of choice, and it's the only one that I kept in my declutter. And that's really all there is to it. I like it because it is like a desaturated gray green instead of being a bright green. I also like that it has sort of a skincare quality, but without being too slippy or serumy. In fact, it has a little bit of clay in it, so it really does grip to the skin and holds its own underneath other layers of makeup. It's just working perfectly for me right now, and I had to include it in this video because my other base products, even the ones I use a lot, I sort of like rotate them out. Like my priming products, for example, and even most of my concealers and foundations, I'll use my favorite ones like every couple of days. But this I use absolutely every day. The other piece of base makeup that I just have not stopped using is my old favorite, the Rose Ink Concealer. So I ran out of this partway through last year. I can't remember when it was, like the fall, towards the end of last year. And rather than replacing it instantly, I just hung out for a little while, used my other base makeup. I like to do that because I feel like it gives me a more realistic sense of whether it's truly worth the money for me to replace something, even if I feel like I really love it and depend on it. If I replace it like soon as it runs out or before it runs out, I never know what my life would be like without it. And I have to really get that information, have that experience to make an actually completely educated, informed decision. But this, I really did miss it. And I was filling in the gaps with other things. But after a month or two had passed, I was like, you know what? I really do want it back again. And I was so happy to have it back that I have defaulted to it, I think every day. Like I've been using it far, far more than any of my other base products, any of my couple of other foundations or mix-ins or, balm foundations or anything like that. I'll briefly say, for those of you who haven't heard me talk about this before, that the things that make it so great for me are these. One, the color is perfect. It is like a very pale, desaturated, slightly grayish, super neutral tone. It's not peach. It's not pink. It's not orange. It's not strongly saturated with color. It is desaturated. And that's so rare to find at the lightest end of a shade range. It's also really, really high coverage. So a teeny tiny bit of it goes a very long way. And that allows me to manipulate it, to give myself a lot of coverage if I want it, to really sheer it out by like mixing it with skincare if that's what I want. I can even use it to spot conceal. And I've been doing that on a lot of days. And then lastly, in spite of being so full coverage, it really is creamy. And once it kind of sets into the skin, it develops a little bit of dewiness. And I love that. So even though I've used a lot of my other base products a lot, these are the two that I have used the most. If memory serves, I came through my declutter at the end of the year with just 3 mascaras. The Chantecaille Longest Lash Mascara, which was definitely my most used mascara last year, the Gen C mascara, and this one, Lash Prototype from Make Beauty. And here's the thing, this is almost the only one I've used so far in 2023. The other two are there. I reach for them once in a while just for a little bit of variety, but this one has been the mascara of the year so far for me. It had a little bit of a rocky start because it's so wet. And when I first started using it, I was like, how is this the formula? Like, how is this possible? All my lashes just stuck together and were really weighed down. But then I realized you have to wipe off the wand. And when I wipe off the wand, I get these like fluffy, long lashes, fluffy, long black lashes, which I've realized that I really like. I used to be into like the super gunky, spidery lash. I'm enjoying the drama of a fluffy lash, and I'm really, really getting that from Lash Prototype in a way that the other 2 mascaras that I have definitely don't give me. They're a little bit more natural. The Chantecaille one is quite natural, effective at lengthening and thickening, but quite natural. The Gen Z mascara is a little bit more on the like dramatic side. It's harder, again, to get that wispy, fluffy lash. This gives me the wispy, fluffy lash, but in a very dramatic way. Even though I knew I loved it going into the year, I'm actually surprised by how much I have favored it over my other 2 mascaras. And lastly, let's talk about lips. So I have been completely entrenched in a single vibe for lips so far this year, and that has been like the liquid balm, like the liquid lip treatment that has some color in it. That's all that I've wanted to wear for the past month. So the Merit Shade Slick Lip Oil is kind of like a lightweight version of that kind of thing. It's like a classic in that category for me. It's a bit of a watery oil. It has a good presence on the lips, but it's the kind of thing you slather on and then slather on again, like reapply and reapply. Feels really great. And this color, Marrakesh, I feel like looks really, really great. I've surprised myself by reaching for Marrakesh almost every time I've wanted to wear this product, even though I have taupe, which is like a little bit more neutral, more natural, doesn't add that brightness of color. There's something about Marrakesh. It's like it adds color, but it doesn't add what I would call a pop of color. Somehow, and maybe it's the sheerness, and maybe it's like the softness of this red, but somehow it just lights up my face, but without looking makeup-y at all. And it's funny, this is something that I know because I edit my own videos. I'll wear it, and then when I'm editing a video back in which I'm wearing it, I'll be like, wow, I love the way that my lips look. They just look juicy and shiny and have a healthiness about them, but without looking too bright. So I've really fallen for Marrakesh. I mean, I've been using it for over a year. I've loved it for a long time, and it sort of keeps coming back and having a resurgence for basically months at a time, and this has been one of those months. If you've been watching, you know that I've also been wearing, you can even tell by how much I've used of it, a lot of the Ami Colé lip treatment oil. It's called a lip treatment oil, but it's really a gloss. It's much, you can see it right there, right? It's much stretchier and stickier than the Merit product. They're basically in different categories. This is a lip gloss. However, the fact that it is billed as a lip treatment oil indicates that it has some nourishing qualities for the lips, which I find that it does. I think that some lip glosses, they're just for show and they don't actually help hydrate the lips. This does, but it has that like thick, tenacious quality of a gloss rather than being something that you slather on and reapply like the Merit. I find that if I put this on like at the beginning of a video, for example, it'll still be there hours later. Maybe not quite at the same level of vibrance, especially if I've been eating or drinking, but it'll still be there. And that's great given that it has nourishing qualities as well. However, the real champion quality of this is the color. I just love this like truly cool toned brown for a gloss. I love the way that it looks. And you know, I've been wearing it like crazy. Honorable mention goes to the Westman Atelier Squeaky Clean Liquid Lip Balm. It's an honorable mention because this actually is a product that I've been testing in January, but it's an instant classic. As they say, it's already been completely folded into my permanent collection of lip products, and I've worn it as much as anything. I've worn it as much as either of those two, and so I just had to mention it here. The shade name is Nana, and I like that it's pale and cool toned, but actually has enough pigment to kind of tint my lips to be a little bit paler than they are naturally, and it does that without making them look orange, because so many glosses that are called nude or that are billed as nude, glosses or lip treatments or anything that goes on the lips, so many of them turn orange on me. That is really what I love about both of these, right? They are, each one of them, a nude color, but neither of them has those warm undertones that makes it look like an orange on my lips. And this, the Westman Atelier, it's like a thick, nourishing balm. It really does feel like kind of a liquid chapstick or something like that. So I feel like it's the best of both worlds. It's so skincare-y and it's also so beautiful. So this is it, the little collection of products that I've used more than I've used any of my other cosmetics in the year of 2022 so far. The blushes, the little eyeshadows, 2 complexion products, the lip products here, and my most used mascara. I hope this was fun to watch. Because I've been applying makeup on camera and I've applied some of these things on camera, part of me just felt like I was repeating information that you already know. But I actually think that it's hard to tell from the other side of the screen what's actually getting like consistent, repeated use behind the scenes. You might kind of guess, you might be able to infer on a couple of products, but this is like absolutely everything totally solid. Like this is what I have been using over and over and over again. So let me know if you enjoyed this, if it was kind of helpful, interesting to find out what I've actually been using. This is definitely a video style that I could revisit in the coming months. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Again, please subscribe if you aren't subscribed. subscribed, and don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.